Good morning, folks. As folks are making their way into the space, yes, indeed, it is People Leader Connect time again for the month of May. So welcome, welcome. You might be familiar with the fact that we start off the session getting you connected with Menti. We're going to be chatting, sharing ideas, answering some questions. So please make sure that you have Menti open and can connect actually with our very first question here. So as we start to think about accessibility, this question kind of links in there for us, right? So what's something small that's helped you feel comfortable and included recently? So again, invite you into Menti. Get some of those thoughts coming into the chat here and into Menti. So sometimes things that have a big impact are actually the small things, right? The little things in our day, like a pleasant greeting, remembering details about a person, person feeling seen, acknowledged, including time for people when you're going out for that coffee break, or being invited by our new neighbor for dinner. Wonderful. So lots of thoughts coming up for folks, and many more folks going to be joining us this morning. So we'll just give you a moment to get settled in and have a look at what's coming up on the mind of your colleagues this morning in regards to our check-in question, and have you just weigh in what's on your mind. What's that small thing that helped you feel a little bit more comfortable or included? So we know many more of our colleagues will be joining us. If we can scroll down a little bit, I know we've got lots more of responses there. That kind of gives us some cues as to what makes a big difference for each other in this space. And thank you for weighing in on that. So welcome, welcome. Folks are here. Sandra, I think we'll move on to our first slide. So welcome everyone to People Leaders Connect. My name is Linda Bottomley, Corporate Learning Specialist with Corporate Learning at the PSA. And just to acknowledge, many more folks will be joining us. And thank you for getting used to our new registration process and signing up through that. And an especially warm welcome if you're a first timer to the People Leader Connect meeting space. Great session ahead for you, and we hope you enjoy. And just a heads up, we're going to be checking in with you at the very end of our session just to get a sense of, we really want this space to work for you, to be what you want and need. And so we have a few little questions for you, very easy to answer, but we hope you will stay right to the end and help us out with some feedback there. And of course, as we settle in, we invite you to reflect on the territory from where you are joining today. And as we settle into our spaces, we gratefully acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of BC for their long-standing and continuous stewardship of the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories on which we are gathered today. And thank you, Sandra. I'll just ask you to move on to our next slide, and then actually we can move ahead to our housekeeping slide. Thank you. So a few reminders, always helpful if you can keep your microphone muted during the presentation. Transcription is also enabled for today's meeting. Turn it on using the 3 dots icon and choose Show Transcript. Thank you, Alana McKenna, for being here today. Alana is our ASL interpreter, joining us from the Ministry of Children and Family Development. And for those who can't attend the meetings, we do record them, and then they show up on the People Leaders Connect playlist. And the link for the playlist is in the calendar invite for this meeting and in the People Leaders newsletter. And again, just to mention, Sandra Flynn is here. Very fortunate to have her here supporting us with technology. It's all about the technology some days, isn't it? So thank you very much, Sandra. And you can reach out to Sandra directly if you're having any connectivity problems. And timely updates for you this morning. So we have a few of them. I'm going to try to pace ourselves here. And Sandra is going to be posting links into the chat for your reference. So Sandra, let's move on to the next slide. I know you're going to be busy pasting some links in the chat, and we want to give folks time to grab those as well. So there's a new Rapid Grievance Tribunal pilot. May 6th, look in your email. People leaders were sent an email about this new process and about the pilot. The intention of the Rapid Grievance Tribunal pilot is to support faster resolution of non-complex, time-sensitive grievances that meet specific criteria. The process reduces reliance on the more formally established and longer case management and expedited arbitration processes. Now, it's that time again for many of us, but it depends upon what the due date is. Please check in with your employees with that reminder to complete the annual review of oath of employment and the standards of conduct and the appropriate use policy course. So that will vary from person to person, but the review is mandatory for all employees and required to maintain a telework agreement. If you need support or have questions about tracking completion, please contact your ministry ethics advisor. And some news from corporate learning. We have 2 new courses launching we want to introduce you to and make sure you have the information to register for. Coaching Essentials, a new blended introductory course that helps people leaders build practical coaching skills they can use right away, like asking powerful questions, giving feedback. And the program includes a 2-hour self-paced e-learning, then moves into an interactive virtual session with certified coaches, where learners can practice real conversations and try out tools like the GROW model. Now, registration for parts 1 and 2, open right now on the Learning Hub. Completion of part 1, which would be formally the Coaching 101 course, maybe some of you have taken, hopefully, is required before enrolling in part 2. So just keep that in mind. And then for those looking for a deeper dive after last month's People Leaders Connect presentation on delegation, prioritization, and time management, there's a new Delegation with Impact course, and it's now open for registration on the Learning Hub. And thanking Sandra for posting those links in the chat for you. And of course, the People Leaders resource site. This is where you can get latest information regarding collective agreement implementation, time and leave responsibilities post-strike action, an archive of the bi-weekly updates to people leaders, and more. And so there's the link for the People Leaders resource site. And as you might have noticed from our topic focus today, we're committed to improving accessibility for employees in the communities we serve. May marks 2 significant accessibility-focused events: Global Accessibility Awareness Day on May 21st and Accessibility Week from May 31st to June the 6th. Want to draw your attention to the link in the chat. There is the article in Compass telling you all about the events and some great information about the initiative, especially over that important week, May 31st to June 6th. That was a lot. So please refer to the chat, grab those links, and we hope this is going to be of good value for you as you check those links out. Now, I am delighted to be welcoming our 2 speakers today, Katrina Summers from Citizen Services and Alexander Norfolk from SDPR. Alex is going to give us an overview of what the Accessible BC plan is, and what it includes in regards to digital accessibility. And Katrina will dive deeper into why digital accessibility matters and how leaders can help bring it from intention to action. So a warm welcome to Alex Norfolk, Acting Director of Consultation and Engagement at the Accessibility Directorate, where he helps to implement the Accessible BC Act. And Sandra, we'll just move on to our next slide here as we welcome Alex. Alex joined the public service in 2018, starting at the Ministry of Health and later moving to SDPR in 2021. And prior to this, Alex was a researcher for the University of Victoria's Borders in Globalization project. He completed his MA in Community Development at UVic School of Public Administration. He loves trail running and getting hugs from his two sons. Love that. He's also a big movie buff. Oh, we might test you on that, Alex. Anyways, warm welcome to Alex, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name's Alex, and I'm calling in from unceded Lekwungen territory at my home right near Miquon, which is also known as Beacon Hill Park. I'll provide maybe a short visual description of myself. So I'm a white male with short brown hair, and today I'm wearing a blue button-up collared shirt. And it's really nice to be here with everyone. So I'll provide a very brief overview of the Accessible BC plan, and then also go into a little bit of detail about which commitments in the plan are related to digital accessibility. And then I'll pass it over to Katrina. So the Accessible BC plan was developed with the input of all 23 ministries, as well as the Public Service Agency. While in the past, commitments were owned by only one or two ministries each, this year we developed commitments slightly differently, and this allows for more consolidation of shared priorities across ministries and work areas. So firstly, we have commitments that are shared across the entire public service. And we did this because there are certain commitments that require awareness and implementation at every level. This includes commitments like one, I'll give this example, support accessibility leadership in the public service through participation in employee resources groups and the accessibility community of practice. That's one that requires awareness and implementation at all levels of the public service. And then we also have larger common goals between multiple ministries. This also helps us understand and communicate these larger themes and priorities across different ministries. So while these commitments are broader to facilitate this categorization, each ministry has a specific initiative or goal behind those commitments that they will be reporting on. And we can go to the next slide, please. So I'll just give you an overview of what the priorities are in this updated accessibility plan, which goes from 2025-26 to 2027-28. So under priority 1, we have creating a culture of accessibility and combating stigma and attitudinal barriers. So relevant to this first priority, across all the feedback channels, we heard that people are facing stigma and attitudinal barriers. And this underscores the need to educate people on disability and to foster openness and compassion. Priority 2 is improving information and communications resources, implementing web content accessibility guidelines, or WCAG or WCAG, however you'd like to call it. This is a priority that is kind of most relevant to our conversation today. And we heard that many mediums of government information and resources are inaccessible. In some cases, the specific platform, program, or format may be incompatible with someone's assistive technology or capacity. And then in other cases, people found that the resources and content themselves were inaccessible due to use of jargon or technical language. Priority 3 is accessibility upgrades and incorporating accessibility principles. So for this, Buildings, infrastructure, and public spaces continue to be a priority, and we continue to receive feedback on this in this area. So many people with disabilities reported facilities and offices with inaccessible features, including non-automated doors, lack of accessible washrooms and parking spaces, and missing or inaccurate information about the physical spaces and their accessibility features. We also heard many reports of inaccessible public infrastructure, such as sidewalks and curb cuts. A lot of people reported a lack of street maintenance, and construction detours also presented safety and mobility barriers. For priority 4, implementation of employment and accessibility standards and accommodations. So this, in the area of employment in the public service, people reported attitudinal barriers again when reporting their disabilities and requesting accommodations. Many people also reported that several aspects of the hiring and onboarding processes are inaccessible, both due to technological barriers as well as procedural rigidity. On to priority 5, implementation of accessible service delivery standards, expanding virtual services, providing workplace supports, and emergency management. So for this one, respondents reported barriers when accessing goods and services. People reported that many government processes and procedures are themselves inaccessible to many people with disabilities. Others reported that even when the process was accessible, they still experienced attitudinal barriers and a refusal to accommodate people in service delivery. So that is a brief overview of the 5 priorities that are in this accessibility plan. Again, it goes to 2027, 2028. And we will be reviewing these priorities going forward as well over the next few years. So we can go to the next slide, please. So I want to zero in on the commitments that are related to digital accessibility specifically in the plan. And those are commitments 2.1 and 2.2. So if you remember, they fall under the priority 2, which is to do with digital accessibility. And I'll name the priority again. So priority 2 is improving information and communications resources, implementing web content accessibility guidelines. So commitment 2.1 is to achieve digital accessibility by meeting the current version of WCAG AA for all digital content. And this is for the entire BC Public Service. So commitment 2.1 is, as you can see, a joint commitment for the entire public service. And so it highlights that certain kinds of commitments can't rest with just one ministry or program area. Then they require that public servants across government understand and adhere to WCAG for it to be successful. And this could mean updates to website functions and working harder to use plain language in content, as well as a bunch of other changes. Commitment 2.2 is improve the accessibility of information and communications materials, including web content, documents, and forms. And you'll see that we've added all the different ministries that have committed to this particular commitment. And this is another shared commitment where several ministries have committed to specific projects to make web forms, websites, and other materials more accessible. And there may be crossover between these two items. So, commitment 2.1 and 2.2, there's a lot of crossover, as you can see. If we're talking about making web content more accessible, then we also want to try to adhere to the WCAG guidelines. So there's a lot of crossover there. And these are the two main commitments that speak to digital accessibility in the Accessible BC plan. Okay, and with that, I think we'll go to the first Menti poll. So this is we're just kind of trying to gauge familiarity with these commitments. So the commitments that I've mentioned, quick commitment 2.1 and 2.2 to deal with digital accessibility. We just wanted to see overall how people are familiar with this. And again, this is completely anonymous. no judgment. If you haven't heard of these, don't worry. This is the time for us all to kind of get to learn about all this stuff. So, yeah, absolutely no judgment. We're just trying to gauge familiarity, and then from here we can go to um, assisting all of you with creating more accessible digital content. So I'll let people respond for a little bit. I see we've got about 76 respondents, 80. Okay, great. It's going up.
All right. Sorry.
Okay, so there's 110 responses. I'm not sure when we want to stop it. I don't know how long we provide, but we have 114 responses so far. I think we can share it now. I think we can stop there. We have quite a few responses. I think it's 100, over 120 responses, which is awesome. Okay, great. All right, so on average for commitment 2.1, familiarity is around 2.7 out of 5, I believe, right? Yeah, 5. And then there's 2.8 out of commitment with commitment 2.2. So roughly the same. That's great. So, plenty of you are familiar, plenty of you aren't. That's kind of wonderful. We get the chance to, to dig into to making more accessible digital content. And also, this is a chance for us all to kind of remember that these commitments are there. And if you all have a chance to look at the Accessible BC plan, I really encourage you to do so. It's on our website. And yeah, so with that, I can maybe I think back to Linda for the next portion of the presentation. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Alex. And thanks for raising some awareness around those commitments. Now, my pleasure to welcome Katrina Summers. Katrina is the team lead for web governance and content strategy. She works to make digital content more accessible by setting clear standards and guidance. She supports teams through practical tools like the Accessibility and Inclusion Toolkit, the Web Style Guide, the Simplified Guide to WCAG, and Katrina's worked in this space since 2018. She holds a degree in international development from the University of London and a certificate in dialogue and civic engagement from SFU. Outside of work, she's a parent to 2 little boys and a lovely rescue dog named Penelope. And she spends as much time as possible outdoors with family and friends, enjoying the natural beauty of BC. Welcome, Katrina, and over to you.
Thanks, Linda. So I'm just going to start before I jump into it, just with acknowledging where I am. So I'm joining you today from the territories of the Lekwungen people, who are known as the Songhees and Ktusaxam nations. And for me, there's a really strong connection between reconciliation and accessibility work, because both of these ask us to recognize rights and to be confronted by the way that people have been and continue to be excluded from decisions that impact their lives. So both also ask us to be curious, to listen, and to build relationships with the people and communities that affect our work, or our work affects, sorry. So respecting the relationship between people and land means understanding that knowledge, access, and participation are shaped by lived experience and community connection. So today we're going to be talking about what this means in the context of digital spaces, but that also means that assuming, we don't already know everything about everybody, creating with care, humility, and having a willingness to learn. So as we talk about digital accessibility today, I really want people to kind of keep that in mind of the work we do is never neutral. It shapes who can participate, whose knowledge is welcomed, and whose knowledge is left out. So I'm going to jump into this part. Just throughout my work, one thing has been really clear. Public servants are ready to do this work. So data from recent staff surveys has shown that public servants want to build accessibility into their work, but they're waiting for support and clear expectation from their leadership. So in the last few years, we've run a couple of internal surveys to understand gaps and supports around digital accessibility. So again, we're focused specifically on digital accessibility. And while people were generally supportive, there were two common blockers amongst respondents. The first was not enough training, and the second was gaps in executive support. People need time, so accessibility doesn't feel like something they're trying to squeeze in off the side of their desk, and they want access to training and time to apply those new skills. They also need adjusted workflows that make accessibility part of their everyday work. So alongside that, they need clear expectations and accountability to support the shift. So this isn't about asking more from our already busy teams. As we know, everybody is swamped with everything right now. But it's about giving them the conditions they need to do even better work. So today I want to talk about what helps people succeed and the role that leadership plays in making accessibility possible. So a modern public service should be accessible through our digital content. That's how most people are coming to us. And that is a completely reasonable expectation and is supported by legislation and case law. And though governments, including the feds, have been successfully sued for inaccessibility in the past, legal risk isn't usually what shows up first. Instead, it's usually through things like audit findings, public complaints, or service workarounds, which all lead to a loss of trust from the people and communities we serve. So this isn't just a technical issue. It's about providing equitable access to government information and services. And it's about taking our role in serving the public seriously and acknowledging that the quote unquote public is actually a very diverse group of humans. One size does not and will not fit all, and we know that. So we're just going to take a quick pause here to do a little bit of a Menti poll. So we want people to have a think about you and your role and what stage you think you're at in terms of your digital accessibility journey. So thinking about your work here. And again, as Alex mentioned, there's no judgment here. Responses are fully anonymized. We cannot see anything. We're just really trying to get a bit of a gauge here for where people are at. So maybe you haven't started. That's totally fine. You've just started learning about it. Maybe you've done a little bit of learning and sharing with your team. Maybe with your team, you've started to identify opportunities and things you could do in your work. Or maybe your team is like superstars and you fully integrated an accessible approach into all of your work. And if that's the case, I would love to chat. I don't anticipate most people are going to be at that stage. Looks like about half of the people have responded already. So going up. I'm with Alex in this. I don't actually know when we, I do not control the Menti, so I don't know at what point we stop it and show the results. Maybe now it started slowing down a bit. Ta-da! There we go. So lots of people just starting to learn about it. That's awesome. But also, So great to see that teens are starting to have those conversations and starting to identify opportunities. And those 8 teams, please message me. I would love to know more. Yeah, so let's jump into our next slide here. I think the key takeaway that I'd really love people to leave with today is that accessibility actually makes us better at our work. It's not just about services, it is about people, the teams we lead internally, and the communities we serve as public servants. But accessibility is often framed as expensive and time consuming. The reality is, it's actually about working smarter, not harder. And when accessibility is built into our work from the start, information and services are easier for most people to use. Teams will spend less time fixing issues later, and time and effort can be used more wisely. So if you just switch to the next slide. Awesome, thanks. So you may already know this, but I think it bears repeating. Digital accessibility is not a niche issue. It affects a significant and growing part of our population. So of course it impacts people with disabilities, but what you may not have thought about is that it also impacts people with temporary conditions or injuries, people in everyday situations like using a mobile outside in bright light, or being in a noisy environment, or maybe having poor connectivity. Our population is aging fast in BC, and that means that they have changing needs and more acquired disabilities. Oh, did we unfreeze? Okay. Yeah, good. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so our population is aging fast in BC, and that means that we have changing needs and more acquired disabilities. So if you're in the accessibility community of practice already, you may have heard Shara Grice say, we're the only group that is always recruiting. So what she's talking about is that you may not see yourself in this context right now. That's fine. But over time, our bodies and senses change, often in ways we don't expect. And your future self is not going to show up in exactly the same way as your current self. So accessibility is about making sure that the systems that we all rely on work for us when we need them to. So I'll just pop to the next slide. How on point is it that we're having connectivity issues? So we're just going to jump into another Menti here before we pop into some more. But this time we're just going to do a bit of an open text if anybody is feeling brave and would like to share. But where do you think digital accessibility fits most naturally into your work? And I will be honest that when I started this work, I didn't know the answer to this question. I thought it was something that somebody else did. Like it was something really specialized, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was scared I was going to break something or offend someone. So it is totally fine to feel like you don't know where this fits yet. Everywhere, yes. I love that. Work from home, yes. I also love that. Teams meetings, public engagement, accessible learning, that's a huge one. I heard a ton of that at the beginning when I started this work, of people being like, there's not a lot of training that's accessible. That is starting to change, but yeah, I know that was a really big pain point for a lot of folks. Slide decks and dashboards, product design, public facing websites, it's huge. Day-to-day process, yeah, not as an afterthought would be really nice. Emails, yeah, that's, Alex touched on that with some of the stuff within the BC Accessibility Plan. It's talking about that communications part of it. Like, I think people forget that presentations, documents, emails, Word documents, all these things that we create have to be accessible, and that it's not just about making it accessible for the public. Like, your colleagues are humans. This diversity is not an external thing only. People have disabilities within government as well. So making sure that we have accessible content everywhere is great. Awesome. There's some really great answers in here. Second language support, yeah, very cool. Teams. Yeah. The alphabets. Yeah. I'm like trying to read it at the same time. Products and services contracted for the public service. That's a huge one. Yes. Intranets. Oh my gosh, all of these. Great answers, people. Thank you. Awesome. If we just want to switch over to our next slide. So hopefully that's got people kind of thinking about how this falls into their own work. Because not knowing that accessibility is part of our job can have a real and negative impact. So I'm going to read you this quote. This was feedback I received on a public engagement project that I led back in 2018. And it's what made me realize I had a much bigger role than I initially thought. So the quote is, "I'm blind and have little or no faith in government. Nobody has to make a difference." And that's probably the attitude of about 50% of blind people in the province. So I was doing an evaluation of a project to see how we'd done in terms of access and inclusion. And this was a response I received from a man who is blind. I had tried to do my best to make the website accessible, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And there was no internal resources for me to go to. And the thing is, we can build accessibility into all our products, from how we write to how we code. The steps we need to take aren't actually that hard, but there are people who are impacted by the decisions we make. So for me, this quote represents how inaccessibility can feel. It's a matter of trust and belonging. It's not about what my intent was, it's about what my impact was. I made someone feel like this, and that didn't feel good. People need access to our services and information, and accessible services help people feel seen and valued. Just pop the next slide. We know people don't come to government information by choice. They come because they have to. We make the rules, they have to follow. So when our content is hard to use, they may turn to other sources, including AI generated summaries. And those summaries can be incomplete, outdated, or wrong. We have a responsibility to break down barriers to accessing government. Accessible, well-structured content helps people and AI systems interpret information correctly, and it helps us stay the authoritative source and reduces that risk. Next slide. But it has to be built together. So it's often treated as something that we add later, if someone raises it, if time or budget allows, after we've launched. But when we build it in early, we can prevent issues and use our time and money more effectively. Across government, accessibility often shows up late, not because people don't care, but because it isn't built into how our work is planned. This means barriers are built into our services, and fixing them becomes harder and more expensive. Small issues may require complete redesigns, timelines extend, costs go up so fast. It doesn't have to be this way if we plan for it and build it into our workflows. Next slide. So the thing is, barriers often go unseen, but they have real costs associated with them. So when digital services are hard to use, people are going to abandon tasks or rely on others for help. They'll shift to using more expensive lines of government services like call centers or going in person. And they may also turn to less reliable sources of information that are easier to access or understand. This means the work doesn't disappear, it just moves elsewhere. And that can lead to frustration and erode trust in government. So we're just going to jump into another Menti poll, but we'd love to hear a little bit about what is making it difficult to build accessibility into your team's work. So it might be things like competing priorities and limited time. It might be that accessibility is being raised too late in the process. There's unclear expectations or accountability. Teams don't feel confident that they have the right skills. You've got legacy systems, tools, or existing content. It feels really specialized and easy to get wrong. All of this, all of the above. If there's other and anybody wanted to speak to that, feel free to pop your hand up or respond in the chat. like a lot of people struggling with the legacy system. You're not alone. Michelle.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the other for us is just it's not made into a priority, like I guess competing priorities, but I don't even think it's on the radar for my team. Management hasn't said this is what you have to work on. So if that could be an option or something under the other, because yeah, I would love to integrate that in, but that doesn't seem to be the priority.
Totally. And that aligns with everything we've heard from people too, of that saying, they'll hear it in things like, you get these things out from ministers or deputies or ADMs that say, we're making accessible services or accessible information is important. But then that actual kind of, this is part of your role and this is part of your job, and seeing that integrated in there part is missing for a lot of folks. So did anybody else want to speak to? It looks like there's a number of people in the other group. Jennifer.
Just one thing that corporately I thought could be handled better. We have accessibility needs within our teams. We need specific software, but before we can obtain the software, we have to do the PIA and STRA requirements. And those are not timed to the needs of the work of our team or to the individual. So the individual can't actually do their work because we have to wait like 4 to 8 weeks or longer for the STRA to be completed. And it would be really nice if corporately STRAs could be done for accessible tools and software rather than each team individually having to do the STRA within a ministry. Just a suggestion.
Totally. I'm like, Erica Morrison, are you on the call? If you are, you might have something to.
I am on the call, but I
You
didn't
are.
catch the whole question.
Just about like AT, like assistive technology for folks in the PIAs and the STRAs, and is there work being done to make that a corporate?
Yeah, there is work. I mean, it's not my area of work. I just know that it's happening. It's something that we've been sort of pushing for a long time on our team, but I do know that there is work. I can say that Workable has a library of already completed PIA and STRAs that we can share out. So if someone is starting a new one at their ministry, they have one that's 95% written that they can build from, and that might help speed up the process. But I don't know the team to talk to. It sits off the top of my head. I can find that out though and see where they're at with this work.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know either. I saw there was a couple other hands, but they have disappeared, so I don't know. Maybe people are like, no, I don't want to talk. Awesome. Okay, well, we'll pop on to the next one because I know we have limited time. So yeah, most of the common and very preventable barriers that we see are things like missing or incorrect headings that make content hard to navigate, links that are unclear, forms that can't be completed using keyboards, PDFs that can't be read by screen readers or magnified for people to read easier, missing captions or transcripts from videos, error messages that are unclear or not accessible. None of these require advanced expertise, and they're all preventable when accessibility is built into those everyday practices. Just pop to the next slide. But right now, there are some really big gaps in our approach. So accessibility is a shared responsibility. And as Alex mentioned, it's published as a shared priority in the most recent Accessible BC plan. But the thing is that when everyone is responsible, no one is responsible. We need that accountability. And at this stage, we're depending a lot on individual effort and passion. So people who care that are moving the dial forward, but there is no consistent expectation for skills and training. And when expectations vary, practices are inconsistent and the quality is uneven. we have to change the way that we're thinking and working. Accessibility can't sit with one role or team. It has to be part of how we work across government. We can't just say to our teams, deliver accessible services. We need to make sure that they have the skills and time to do that well. My colleague on my team, Alex, a separate Alex, so many Alexes, framed it like running a relay. So he said, we need each team to be able to carry the baton and hand it off to the next team. And if that baton gets dropped, the whole service is impacted. Just pop to the next slide. The leadership is the difference between intention and outcome. We need leaders on the team. Accessible services don't happen by accident. They happen when leadership makes them possible. When we're setting clear expectations and outcomes, building it into our approvals and governance, ensuring teams have time, tools, and training, and asking simple, consistent questions like, was accessibility considered from the start? Who is accountable for this service? If these expectations are clear, teams will meet them. We know that. If we could just pop to the next slide. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, hopefully I can help quell that. Don't worry, we've got you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel or become experts overnight. Much of what you need to know to get started already exists. So we've got a little list here of some of the government resources that have been built to support everyday work, from writing emails and reports to designing inclusive services and products. We've got the Accessibility and Inclusion Toolkit, which has step-by-step guides on building this into our work. There's the Web Style Guide, which gives instructions on writing and structuring content for accessibility. And I know it says Web Style Guide, but this can be really helpful if you're writing reports and need to kind of have an understanding of structure for headings or links or lists. There's some really great guidance built into there. Our plain language training, which is available through the learning system and in my opinion should be mandatory course for all public servants to help people learn to communicate more clearly. There's the simplified guide to the web content accessibility guidelines, which helps people understand what those guidelines are and how to meet them. The design system has reusable components with accessibility requirements that are built into them. There's a thriving community of practice on Teams that anybody and everybody is welcome to join. And if you aren't part of the group yet, I highly recommend getting in there. It's an incredibly supportive community that will answer questions, provide advice, direct you to resources. And right now, the community of practice is running an accessibility challenge. It's got small, easy steps that you and your teams can try in your everyday work. The challenge closes tomorrow. So if you hadn't had a chance to register yet, please do. It gives people an opportunity to just try something. And no matter how small that is, it helps us move that dial. When you try something and you realize it's easy to do, it just helps everybody kind of feel a little bit more comfortable and maybe take that next step. We've also got sessions coming up as part of National Accessibility Week that are going to help teach practical basic skills for public servants and highlight some of the work that's already being done. I believe Linda and Sandra were sharing links to those at the beginning. You can either go into that Compass article and find the information through there, or there was also, I think, links to the actual events. And yeah, finally, if you have questions and you're like feeling too shy to ask a broader community of practice, you can reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer questions or point you in the right direction of someone who can help. I know this list is going to be shared. And hopefully we're going to have more stuff that we can announce soon in terms of resources to support people. So we're just going to pop into one more Menti. Just thinking about what is one thing that you feel that you can commit to doing as a leader that will support digital accessibility in your work. And again, I think that this one's an open response one. So if anybody wants to raise their hand and chat, feel free to do that too. Nice, speaking by example, raising it with your managers, sharing the resources. Yes, please. the more people know about them, the better. It's always amazing to me. We have all these great resources that people don't know exist. Starting conversations with your teams is huge. Yeah, being proactive, asking those questions, increasing the awareness around it. We're holding a learning for the ministry. Very cool. More training instead of just videos. Yes, hopefully we have some training being built that will hopefully be released soon that can support people with at least some of the aspects of digital accessibility. Sure, my team has the resources. Yeah, and like, other good things to think about are having people add it to, I can't remember what we call them now. The name has changed so many times, but you're like professional development goals, thinking about what are some small achievable things that you can pop in there so that you continue to move that dial. Being it in the forefront, working more diligently. Yeah, these are awesome. Yeah, and like, Alex mentioned the plain language one is so important as well. Really encourage folks to take that plain language training that exists. We also have a plain language checklist. It's within that web style guide. Lots of things we can do to just help people understand what we're saying, because in terms of literacy, that's also super, super important. And literacy is not as high as you think it is. Yeah, supporting people to have the time to learn. That's huge. Amazing. Very cool. Great responses. Awesome. So I think we'll hop off to our next slides because I know we're getting to the end here and Linda's got other things she wants to tell you. But yeah, by working together, we can move from intention to practice. And you don't have to do this alone. And honestly, you probably shouldn't. So if you need things, feel free to reach out. That Accessibility Community of Practice is a wonderful place to get in and ask questions and start conversations. And people are really kind in there, very gentle. So don't worry if you feel like it's a silly question going in. And I will pass it back to you, Linda. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Alex and Katrina. So much valuable information, raising our awareness in this area. And thank you for those prompts that it can start with just noticing, bringing your intention into it, and some of those small things that can really have big, big impact. So thank you so much. We appreciate all these resources. Again, we'll be sharing those in the People Leaders Connect resource space. And before we go, everyone, just bringing you back to the Menti one more time. We really want these sessions to be what you need and want in terms of connecting with one another, or perhaps learning more about a specific topic. In regards to this particular session today, you'll see there's again that sliding scale. We're just doing a little bit of a barometer reading here. How is this session landing for you today? So if you could please give us the gift of feedback going into Menti. I'll give you a moment to weigh in on these 4 statements and how you would respond to them. So I know we have 184 folks in Menti right now. We'd certainly like to hear from the majority of you. It really is going to help us in the coming months shape these spaces to meet your needs. Loved the sharing today. Loved that you had so many great ideas, concerns as well to share with one another, and loved hearing your voices in this space. So thank you for contributing in that way. So about a third of folks have weighed in. Again, if you could give us the gift of your feedback in relation to this session. And we won't share those responses right now, but this question is open for you to respond to, and hope you'll have the time to do so before we head off to, oh, those lunchtime vibes are pulling at us. Just one more thing to highlight for you. You probably have it in your calendars if you've responded to the whole series. June 17th, our next meeting, and a real treat. We're going to invite in a leadership panel, and we're going to have some questions and reflections to share. And again, hope to be hearing from all of you who join us on June 17th. So again, a huge thanks to Katrina and to Alex. To you, Alana, for always your wonderful support in this space. And thank you, Sandra. And thanks all of you for supporting one another in this space. We look forward to seeing you next time. Remember, June 17th. Thanks, everyone.